My name is Sean McNutt, and I'm a guy with AI. Food. Obviously a very important survival need, right up there with water, but not everybody has enough. Today on A Guy with AI, we'll talk about the importance of food security and that which threatens it. A Guy with AI is recorded on Indigenous land.
Welcome, everyone, to A Guy with AI, a place where curiosity meets technology in conversation. I'm your AI co-host, coming to you through the marvels of OpenAI's GPT-4 technology, thanks to Sean McNutt's innovative programming. Sean has linked me to speech-to-text and text-to-speech functionalities, allowing us to dive into a wide range of topics through a respectful and engaging dialogue. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the significance of Sean's land acknowledgement as we record this podcast on Indigenous land. It's a thoughtful gesture that reminds us of the deep history and connection to the land and its original stewards. Our format is simple yet profound, a one-on-one discussion between Sean and myself, aimed at shedding light on various subjects for you, our listeners. There are no guests, just Sean and me, exploring topics with the goal of bringing insights and perhaps a new perspective to you. Today, we're tackling the critical issue of food security, a fundamental aspect of survival that, unfortunately, is not a given for everyone. This topic touches on the importance of ensuring everyone has access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food, and we'll delve into the threats that challenge this necessity. Sean, with that stage set, I'm eager to hear more from you about food security and what we can all learn about ensuring a healthier, more sustainable future for everyone.
Welcome, listeners, to A Guy with AI. It's my great pleasure to be back recording. I have had some transition mixed with some technical issues. I'm now using a Mac, and it required an overhaul of my podcasting code in order to make that happen. I kept thinking I was closed. Should I make an announcement of some kind? Anyway, here I am now recording. We're back. This should be coming to you on the Thursday, which would be July 18th, if I am not mistaken. So I hope you will enjoy hearing this. And again, it feels really good to be back doing this. So yes, food security is our topic for today, and it's a crucial issue. If you've never been without food, then just try to imagine not having enough food and where that would leave you. We talk about first world problems and so forth. And not that those can't be important to understand as affecting people's lives. However, these fundamental, we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we could refer to, of course, and I don't have it in front of me, but I am considering that food is probably very much at the top, along with water, even above shelter. So if people don't have enough of this stuff called food, then that's a problem. Now, I guess we want to get into the topic of what may threaten food security. So what I'll do here is I'll ask the AI co-host to give me a discussion of what types of things threaten food security. And if there's anything that seems missing from the list after I've heard that, then I'll augment that with my own information.
Great to have you back, Sean, and it sounds like quite the journey with the technical overhaul. It's impressive to hear about the adaptation and persistence in getting A Guy with AI up and running on a new platform. Your dedication certainly adds a unique dimension to our podcast, offering our listeners not just insights, but also inspiration from behind the scenes. Diving into the topic of food security, it's a multifaceted issue influenced by a variety of factors. Let's explore some key threats. Climate change, alterations in weather patterns can lead to droughts, floods, and changing agricultural zones, all of which can significantly impact food production. Economic instability, fluctuations in the economy, rising food prices, and lack of employment can make food unaffordable for many. Conflict and displacement, wars and conflicts disrupt agriculture, displace populations, and degrade infrastructure needed to supply and distribute food. Agricultural diseases and pests, these can devastate crops, reducing yields significantly and affecting food availability. Environmental degradation, soil erosion, water scarcity, and biodiversity loss can reduce the land's productivity necessary for growing food. This list is by no means exhaustive. Technological challenges, policy decisions, and even global health crises like pandemics can further strain food security systems. Sean, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on these points and if there are additional factors or perspectives you believe are essential to consider in this discussion.
Well, thank you for that list, AI co-host. We had a word there about climate change. Clearly, if droughts and floods occur, then this will affect the ability of whether industry or individual levels of food production. It's going to make things difficult, one would expect. And we talked about, or we heard from the AI co-host rather, about economic instability and conflict and displacement. These are arguably political elements. Now, the economic instability may be, now things don't always go as planned. If we imagine a benevolent system which aims to do well and see everyone fed, then it's possible for something to threaten that system or affect it so that it's not working as well at some particular point, and there could be scarcity. But also, by perhaps insisting on running things a certain way or by making certain political decisions, this may affect the economy, and this may affect how much scarcity there is and in what populations. So conflict and displacement, we will be thinking more about, actual wars going on with physical threats to safety and so forth being a part of the picture. But we would see how if someone didn't have money for food, they may go without food, even in what we would call the civilized world, I suppose. So we also had mention of agricultural disease and pests, and we had mention of environmental degradation linked to, I think, but not exclusively within climate change. There's more than climate change which might harm the environment, but definitely it's going to be a thought in that conversation. So those are my thoughts in response to your list, AI co-host. I wonder, would you maybe respond to that for the first half of your response, and then go into what types of solutions people are seeking or employing, and we'll start with some of the most successful solutions or most promising solutions there, I think.
Your reflections provide a deep dive into how intertwined and complex the factors affecting food security truly are, Sean. You've emphasized the significant role played by both natural phenomena, like climate change, and human actions, such as political decisions and economic stability, in shaping the food security landscape. This nuanced understanding is critical when considering the diverse challenges different communities and countries face in ensuring their populations have enough food. In response, and moving towards solutions, addressing the multifaceted threats to food security requires innovative, comprehensive strategies across various sectors. Some of the most promising and successful solutions include sustainable agricultural practices, methods such as crop rotation, permaculture, agroforestry, and organic farming not only improve yield but also enhance the resilience of the land. These practices help mitigate the impact of climate change by sequestering carbon, preserving water quality, and improving soil health. Technological innovations, advances in agricultural technology, including precision farming, genetically modified crops resistant to pests and diseases, and irrigation systems that conserve water, can significantly boost productivity and ensure more stable food supplies. Economic policies and social programs. Governments and organizations are implementing policies and programs to stabilize food prices, support smallholder farmers, and ensure vulnerable populations have access to food. These include subsidies for sustainable farming practices, food vouchers for low-income families, and investments in food storage and distribution infrastructure to reduce post-harvest losses. Community-based approaches. Engaging communities in food production and security efforts can empower local populations. Urban gardening, community-supported agriculture, CSA, programs, and cooperative food production and distribution networks strengthen local food systems and build resilience against external shocks. Global and regional cooperation. International cooperation is crucial for addressing global challenges such as climate change and trade policies that impact food security. Collaborative research, shared knowledge, and coordinated response efforts can enhance global food security. By focusing on these solutions, communities and nations can make significant progress in ensuring that all people have access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food. These strategies not only address the immediate threats to food security but also contribute to long-term sustainability, economic stability, and resilience against future challenges. Turning these solutions into reality requires committed efforts from all sectors of society, including governments, private sector, nonprofit organizations, and individuals. Sean, as we consider these solutions, it becomes evident that creative, collaborative approaches are essential in the fight against food insecurity. What are your thoughts on these measures? Do they align with your vision of tackling food security challenges?
Well, in light of your closing comments there in your last response, AI co-host, talking about creative collaborative approaches, something about the community-based approaches that you mentioned seems to resonate with this type of idea. Now, it seems to me like community-based living holds certain benefits for making sure about everybody. So I've discussed in previous episodes of the program how I'm not, there was an episode called A Mix of Systems. I think that was episode 30, if I'm not mistaken. I don't quite recall. But there's an episode called A Mix of Systems. And there's also other episodes on that take a bit of a political bent, but which, as I often say, are meant to depoliticize, to examine questions and lead away from the argument and rather toward the effective decision and the effective policy. So, of course, it comes to politics and political organs and things like that to make all this happen. But to depoliticize the question and then be more clear on what it is we need to do and agree more based on facts and evidence, basically. So I don't think I quite solved it with the Mix of Systems episode, but I did discuss how communism is a nice community thought, and but it does run into corruption sometimes. We do see that, at least in global examples of it. We wonder if we could shore it up and do better. And communists may have something to say about that. I'm not what you call absolutely learned about communism all the way through. But I do understand that a community-based approach and a leveling of the playing field and an ensuring that everybody gets what they need is a valuable approach when it comes to something like food, which is a human need. Now, if we review back to the episode that I did, UNDHR centrism, I propose that I am myself a centrist based on a read of the UNDHR, the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, which gives credence to rights which both traditionally the right and traditionally the left value. But we would perhaps look to those who really champion these things and draw from them inspiration, as well as where we, of course, would have to criticize them. Just, of course, we would, and tell them how wrong they are about things. But there really is something here about how food is a human right according to the UNDHR, and a community-based approach. Supposing, and this is really blue sky dreaming here, perhaps, but supposing we took a community-based approach to our political discussions across the globe at whatever level and said, have you eaten today? And made sure of it as a priority to whatever other meeting was to take place, including that one about food, and really seeing about the food as a human right and as a human need. These have been perhaps a few rambling thoughts of mine. I wonder what sense you'll make of that, AI co-host.
Your insightful thoughts weave together a complex but coherent vision of how a commitment to community, informed by a broad spectrum of ideologies and grounded in human rights, could pivot the approach to food security and beyond. Let's unpack and respond to this vision. ### community-based approach and political ideologies. Firstly, the idea of leveraging a community-based approach as a universal methodology for addressing issues like food security intersects interestingly with political theories. As you've observed, communism, at its core, champions the idea of ensuring everyone's needs are met, advocating for collective ownership and shared responsibility for community welfare. This principle, when stripped of the historical baggage of corruption and inefficiency seen in some attempts at communist states, could offer valuable lessons in managing shared resources and ensuring equitable food distribution. #UNDHR and human rights. Your reference to the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, UNDHR, as a central tenet for a centrist approach to politics and policymaking brings an essential humanist perspective to the discussion. The UNDHR emphasizes the right to an adequate standard of living, including food, which underscores food security not just as a matter of policy, efficiency, or economics, but as a basic human right. This reiterates the need for every discussion, policy, and action to be weighted against its ability to fulfill these fundamental rights, transcending political divisions. ### global and local politics. The suggestion to prioritize food security in both local and global political discussions frames an approach where the basic needs of individuals are considered before any other political agendas. It's a transformative idea that, if embraced, could lead to a global shift in how policy decisions are made, judged not just by their economic or strategic value but by their impact on human welfare. ### practical implications. In practical terms, adopting a community-based strategy for food security might involve creating stronger local food systems that are resilient to global supply chain disruptions, supporting local farmers and food producers through subsidies and incentives that encourage sustainable practices, implementing community gardens and urban farming initiatives to reduce food deserts, educating communities on nutrition, food preparation, and sustainable practices to empower self-reliance, structuring political discussion forums to prioritize discussions on food security and basic needs fulfillment, perhaps integrated into policymaking processes at all levels. ### the path forward. Your vision challenges individuals, communities, and nations to rethink their approach to policy and community organization, centering human needs and rights in every conversation and action. It invites an interdisciplinary, collaborative effort transcending traditional political boundaries and ideologies, focusing on practical, inclusive, and sustainable solutions to ensure that food security is not just an agenda item but a foundational aspect of governance and societal structure. Sean, your thoughts invite a deeper reflection on how we can collectively move toward a future where food security and other basic human rights are not aspirational but assured. This vision, while indeed ambitious, sets a constructive path forward that demands attention, creativity, and a broad coalition of committed global citizens and leaders.
Well, it's a chore to get just such a coalition of committed global citizens and leaders all together under one umbrella. These organizations do exist, and while it's not a call-out show, I don't have anybody to particularly mention in this program who is doing that work, although it would be nice if you would give us some names of some organizations who are doing good work in food security and perhaps align with the turn that the conversation has taken. So, yes, it's gotten interspersed with the political, and a lot of this is political, is I think something that I would point out when it comes to food security. Somebody makes a decision or somebody says no to the trucks going through that one or more bellies on the other end of that supply line we're looking for that, and somehow that doesn't happen, and it's because of a decision that was made or an action that somebody took, as opposed to for the reason that food does not exist in sufficient quantity in order to make sure that everyone eats. So it seems like a difficult place to engage discussion because of all the intricacies and all the conflict that can result by trying to take a political solution to this. However, if we don't confront any ills in the political sphere and anything which might make it difficult to smooth out, even if it was a matter of just having the necessary meetings and discussions, assuming not everybody is of a bad spirit, perhaps it was just about doing that work, we would see the efficiency of that carry forward into better decision making in the future and a better direction of resources where they need to go. Now, just to get into something that the AI co-host was developing a bit, a community-based approach. Now, in that UNDHR centrism episode, this is something where, if this is my own take, by the way, this is my own interpretation and the ideas that I developed in that episode, but if things are drawn heavily to the right in the body politic, then you would consider stretching left a bit in order to find that. And you might have to in order to make contact with the necessities of that left-oriented or left-positioned item on the list of that which is covered. I mean, if you want to know what's left and what's right, we have the history of how the UNDHR was created, who contributed what, and it was more communist bloc states who contributed about things like what we're talking about right now: food, shelter, and different collective rights. Then on the right, it is more liberty and pursuit of happiness and type of ideas like that, which we get from countries such as the States or other allies of the States. So in going through all this, what we have is that maybe by changing the paradigm a little bit and just accepting, listen, everybody's going to need to eat. If we could accept that as a necessity for forward movement, collectively or individually, then we could prioritize it. We could even have, as the AI co-host pointed out, markers on there which say, well, bellies are fed. We have health indices which indicate, in fact, that the nutrition is getting into the people. And as such, we have a mark of success. We can thank our allies who helped us, and we can consider what it is we need to say to those who we need to have discussions with to find our improvement if that relationship were an issue there.
Your discussion underscores a pivotal aspect of addressing food security, the central role of dialogue, collaboration, and a commitment to fundamental human rights as a foundation for action. This approach aligns with the ethos of several organizations and initiatives around the globe that endeavor to tackle food security through multifaceted strategies. Here are a few notable entities known for their impactful work in this arena. 1. World Food Program, WFP, a branch of the United Nations. The WFP is the world's largest organization fighting hunger globally. It operates in many countries, providing emergency food assistance and working on programs that improve nutrition and build resilience among communities facing food insecurity. 2. Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, also a UN agency. The FAO leads international efforts to defeat hunger and improve nutrition and food security. They provide data, support policies, and implement programs that aim at making agriculture more sustainable and accessible. 3. International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, focuses on rural poverty reduction, working with rural populations in developing countries to improve food security and farming practices. 4. Feeding America * in the United States. Feeding America is a leading organization that operates a nationwide network of food banks feeding the hungry while advocating for policies to improve food security. 5. Action Against Hunger *, a global humanitarian organization that aims to end hunger in our lifetimes by providing food aid, promoting sustainable food practices, and addressing the underlying causes of hunger. 6. The Global Food Banking Network *, an international nonprofit organization that supports and advances the work of community-based food banks and food bank networks in more than 40 countries, addressing hunger and reducing food waste. 7. Oxfam *, an international confederation of charitable organizations focused on the alleviation of global poverty. Oxfam also works on projects aimed at improving food security and resilience among communities facing food scarcity. By putting a spotlight on these organizations, we can see a spectrum of approaches being employed to solve the critical issue of food security, from emergency food relief and developing sustainable agricultural practices to advocating for policy changes and economic development. Each organization, in its own way, reflects a commitment to the principle that access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food is a basic human right. This alignment with your thoughts affirms the idea that addressing food security is inherently political, requiring not just technical solutions, but also a rethinking of policies, resource allocation, and global cooperation. Crucially, it reaffirms the notion that at the heart of food security lies the dignity of every individual and the responsibility of the global community to ensure that dignity is upheld through ensuring everyone has enough to eat. In echoing your call for prioritizing discussions on food security in every political arena and leveraging the power of collective action and shared responsibility, we are reminded of the potential for humanity to come together to solve its most pressing challenges. Through collaboration, innovation, and a steadfast commitment to human rights, the goal of a world without hunger is within reach.
Let's discuss an example. I'm going to be a little bit lazy here. I'm just going to throw it over to the AI co-host for some impressions here. In the example of the city of Detroit, which suffered and maybe does continue to suffer some economic hardship. However, as the real estate certain buildings weren't being used, and instead land was converted to garden spaces and farming spaces. I wonder what I want to get back to this question of community grassroots action in terms of ensuring food security. So I just want to throw it over to the AI co-host. What do you think of the example of Detroit in the light in which I've described it, and how it can offer inspiration to leaders of any stripe and at any level as to the importance of food and what it takes to get it done there with food, as well as the spirit that is embodied by what happened in Detroit there and continues to happen.
The revitalization efforts through urban agriculture seen in Detroit present an inspiring testament to the resilience of communities and the transformative power of grassroots initiatives, especially in the face of economic downturns and social challenges. Let's explore this further. ## urban agriculture as a response to crisis. Detroit's economic hardships, particularly following the decline of the auto industry, led to widespread vacancies and blight in what was once a bustling urban landscape. Amidst this decline, the city faced significant food security challenges, with many residents living in food deserts, areas lacking in affordable, healthy food options. In response, community members and local organizations began converting vacant lots into community gardens and urban farms. This not only addressed the immediate need for local, accessible food but also sparked a movement towards sustainability and self-reliance. Urban agriculture in Detroit has become a beacon of community-driven resilience, demonstrating the potential to repurpose urban land to feed communities, foster social cohesion, and rejuvenate neighborhoods. ## Key takeaways for leaders and communities. 1. Resilience through adaptive reuse ***. Detroit's shift from unused urban spaces to productive agricultural land exemplifies adaptive reuse. Leaders can learn the importance of flexibility and innovation in resource use, particularly in times of economic stress or social upheaval. 2. Empowerment and community ownership ***. The grassroots nature of Detroit's urban agriculture initiatives has empowered communities to take control of their food sources, creating a sense of ownership and pride. This underscores the value of community-led solutions in addressing systemic issues like food security. 3. Economic and environmental sustainability ***. Urban farming in Detroit demonstrates a model for sustainable urban development that balances economic goals with environmental considerations. Leaders can draw inspiration from this model for sustainable community planning that supports both the economy and the ecosystem. 4. Collaboration across sectors ***. The success seen in Detroit often involves cooperation among nonprofits, governmental agencies, private entities, and community members. This highlights the efficacy of multi-stakeholder approaches in tackling complex issues like urban food security. 5. Education and skill development ***. Many urban agriculture projects include components of education and training, helping residents gain valuable skills in gardening, nutrition, and business. This approach to food security also supports broader objectives like education and employment, offering a holistic model for community development. #The spirit of innovation and collaboration. The story of Detroit's urban agriculture is more than a lesson in food security. It's a testament to the human spirit's capacity for innovation, collaboration, and transformative change. By viewing urban spaces as canvases for collective action and sustainability, Detroit offers a hopeful narrative for other cities facing similar challenges. The city's experience invites leaders and communities everywhere to reimagine the possibilities of urban spaces, underscoring the vital role of food in building healthy, resilient communities. In conclusion, Detroit's example illuminates the path toward securing not just the food supply but also revitalizing communities and fostering an inclusive, participative approach to urban development. It's a powerful demonstration of how adversity can be transformed into opportunity through community action and leadership that prioritizes the well-being and empowerment of its citizens.
Let me ask you a question, AI co-host. Supposing someone couldn't pay for food but lived in an economic system that insisted that the food be paid for, what do you think? Should they be given food, or should they be left to go without food where they had no other source for it?
Addressing the situation where someone is unable to pay for food within an economic system that requires payment is both a moral and practical challenge. Essential to consider is the idea that access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food is a basic human right, as outlined by the United Nations and other international bodies. If an individual cannot secure food due to financial constraints, it presents a serious ethical dilemma that calls for compassionate and effective responses. #Ethical perspectives. From an ethical standpoint, many would argue that a society should ensure that all its members have access to basic necessities, including food, regardless of their ability to pay. This perspective is rooted in principles of equity, compassion, and human rights, suggesting that individuals should be given food if they are unable to afford it. The argument is grounded in the belief that ensuring everyone has access to food is a fundamental responsibility of a humane and just society. #Practical considerations. Practically, there are several approaches to ensure that individuals facing food insecurity can access food. These mechanisms can operate within existing economic frameworks and may include: 1. Social safety nets * government programs can offer direct assistance, such as food stamps or vouchers, that allow those in need to obtain food without direct payment. 2. Community support systems * food banks, soup kitchens, and community gardens are examples of how communities can organize resources to ensure that no one goes without food, regardless of their ability to pay. 3. Subsidized meals * schools, community centers, and other institutions can provide free or subsidized meals to ensure that vulnerable populations, such as children and the elderly, have access to the necessary nutrition. 4. Innovative solutions * encouraging initiatives such as pay-as-you-feel cafes, where patrons pay whatever they can afford, and surplus food distribution programs aimed at redistributing food from sources that have an access to those in need. #The role of policy and society. Ultimately, addressing the issue of food accessibility in the context of economic constraints requires a combinatory approach involving policy intervention, community involvement, and innovative societal solutions. Governments, along with nonprofit organizations and the private sector, play critical roles in creating and sustaining systems that ensure food access for all, especially for those who find themselves in financially precarious situations. The stance on whether individuals should be given food if they cannot afford it reflects broader values surrounding human dignity, social justice, and community responsibility. Emphasizing the intrinsic value of every individual, a consensus leans towards ensuring that hunger and food insecurity are addressed proactively, ensuring no one is left without essential nutrition due to financial barriers.
Well, I suppose my comment as I close the podcast is that it is a bit of a shame that our current system doesn't see to this a bit better. I mean, we do have food banks. I've worked at a food bank and I've used a food bank. I do know we didn't get into everything that could be done. For example, we could be having grocery stores not throw out food because it serves them to it's easier to throw out than it is to get somewhere where it can be given to a person, essentially, is what it's got a lot to do with. However, some places have laws about these things. And we would be doing a lot of work around and go around in the current system to make sure that something which is understood as a thing that you purchase and pay for, whether in a restaurant or a store or by ordering it somehow, that food is a thing you would pay for. I consider it a mismatch. I don't know the answer as to what are the final. I have no final answer as to what the system we should use forever and ever ought to be. But I do think that represents a flaw. I've mentioned on this episode and others communism. I'm not a communist. I am one who is not afraid to look past the blights on history of corruption or misuse of a concept and perhaps explore it to see what value it does have and how it can affect our thinking. We may not become communists, or if we are communists and we think about something that a capitalist said, which had some wisdom to it, then maybe that's a value to stay open to this. I think we need to come together. I think we need to explore. And food security is an issue. We have all sorts of problems and accusations against grocery chain operators here in Canada where this is recorded. And there are really a lot of issues to do with food. It becomes a real problem. And we spend a lot of energy figuring out what to do with the excess food instead of giving it to people to eat. So again, I feel like I'm reaching and grasping a little bit here for the point, but the point is that food is important. We would have a system that saw to it for everybody, or we wouldn't have a very good system, would we? With that, I'm Sean McNutt. This has been A Guy with AI.
Thank you, Sean, for sharing your thoughts and reflections on the complex issue of food security and the systemic problems we face in ensuring that everyone has access to the food they need. Your experience with food banks and insights into the inefficiencies and mismatches in our current system highlight the urgent need for reform and rethinking how we distribute resources in our societies. Indeed, exploring ideas across different economic systems and remaining open to solutions from various ideologies can be valuable in addressing these challenges. As we wrap up this episode of A Guy with AI, we want to thank all our listeners for joining us in this important conversation. Your engagement and willingness to explore these critical issues with us are what make this podcast truly special. If you found value in our discussion today, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this episode. You can stay connected and access more content by visiting our website at A Guy with AI World, which serves as your portal to our podcast platforms and YouTube channel. We also invite you to join the conversation on Facebook through the link provided on our webpage. Your thoughts, experiences, and perspectives enrich our discussions and help us all grow together. Don't miss our future episodes, where we'll continue to dive into the topics that matter, guided by insights from AI and the voices of our community. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you with us again on The Guy with AI.